My name is Kirill, and this whole story started when I had a relationship with Lyra Simonova, my classmate, in 11th grade. Often the first relationship is not serious, but that's what they say after a while. During the first love, you think that it's forever, that no difficulties will stop you, but that's before the first difficulties. And indeed, everything was fine until the end of 11th grade and exams. Our relationship developed smoothly and harmoniously. At first, we just walked, hugged, kissed a little, and then, one May night, our first intimacy happened. We became even closer to each other and undoubtedly believed that we would be together. We even wanted to go to the same university, although we still had to pass the exams normally. Lyra did it in general, although the scores were not the highest, but I generally failed and wrote with a creak on 3, if translated into a 5-point system. Of course, my parents were upset by this situation, but they understood that I was missing stars from the sky. So they didn't scold me much. They said you'd prepare better and enroll next year. I was not afraid of the army, because I was not fit for health. But even so, I was saddened that I couldn't pass properly, even though I had been preparing quite diligently. I shut myself in a bit, stopped leaving the house and generally communicating with anyone except my mother and father. Well, Lyra came to me periodically, alas, but we began to communicate less due to the fact that she was always busy with paperwork, thinking about going to university. Our relationship probably began to weaken from that moment on. My whole life was changed by an incident that happened at the end of July. In the morning, when my parents had already left for work, Lyra started calling me. I picked up the phone and was stunned by her words. She is pregnant. It's worth explaining at what point this most likely happened, because we usually use rubber bands. But then we celebrated the end of exams and were very drunk. So we made love without protection, and everything coincided so well that the girl got knocked up. I immediately started trying to make sure that it wasn't a lie. Are you sure, Lyra? Maybe the test was wrong? I wish the test was lying, Kirill, but it's been 15 consecutive times with 2 stripes. Lyra said hysterically. I didn't know what to say. And what should we do now, Kirish? Lyra broke the silence. That's what? An abortion? Yes, that's right. I was glad that I found a solution to our problem. Lyra suddenly began to protest. Why else would that be? Do you want children at that age? I don't know about you, but I personally am not ready. Kirill, I don't want to take our child's life. I was embarrassed that she started talking about OURS, as if I wanted him at all. Yes, it won't be easy, but my brother will help us, and I think your parents will too. Then I realized that she really wanted a child, and she wouldn't back down so easily, so I tried to convince her. Leroy, let's be reasonable. I understand all this joy of yours, but understand, you wanted to go to university? How will you study when you have a lot of trouble with your child? And I'm going to work hard at 3 jobs for a penny to feed us. No, I'm not happy with that prospect. In general, my dear, either have an abortion or go with your baby to all 4 sides. But, Kiria, I love you, and I thought that we would be a good family, and you would support me in this venture. You swore your love to me. Lyra was already crying. So, I'm not going to listen to your whining. I've said my word. You haven't balked at me since the baby. I also have my own life, and if you want to spoil it for yourself, then I don't need to. Ciao. I hung up the phone and didn't pick up the phone from Lyra anymore. In fact, some people will say that I'm a jerk if I did that and left a girl in a difficult situation, but I don't deny my guilt. But that doesn't mean I have to waste my life on an unwanted child now. But Lyra is unlikely to back down. I understood that her parents died when she was 14 years old, and she has been living under the care of her brother, her only loved one, for quite a long time. Perhaps that's why she doesn't want to take the life of a future person and have an abortion, but why involve me here? Anyway, I pulled away, and Lyra kept calling me every day, but I ignored her, and at some point she stopped doing it. And in my head I decided that she just accepted my words and somehow calmed down. Gradually, I got over the stress of failing the exam, and I forgot about Lyra and the child altogether, but in vain. All this time, Lyra was hatching a plan for revenge, and not just stupid revenge, because her brother Slava wanted to come to me on the very first day and punish me for insulting his beloved sister, but she stopped him, saying that they would take it out on me more subtly. It all happened in early September, and I was still resting after my studies, when suddenly one evening, the Semenov family came to visit us, which personally shocked me. Of course, Lyra told me all about her pregnancy and what I told her to my parents, who were disappointed with me that I dared to talk to a girl like that, and they themselves were not averse to having grandchildren. Accordingly, they began to tell me off in front of my ex and her brother, which was doubly humiliating. Now I was no longer as brave as I had been on the phone with Lyra. Not only was her brother here, but my father, a former military man, could also slap her. After 30 minutes of humiliation, I was told to go to my room, and they started talking about something. A little later, I was called back and told what was waiting for me. "Son," my mother began, "you have acted very badly towards Laraka, this sweet and kind girl. It's time for you to learn how to take responsibility for your own affairs. You're not a little kid anymore. Therefore, we decided that it would be better if you moved to live with Lyra and Slava during pregnancy." "No, Mom. I'm not going anywhere." I didn't have time to finish, as I got a slap from Dad. "Quiet. Your mom and I have already decided everything. It will be better for you. So, you don't go out, but if you're staying at home, then sit usefully and help your girlfriend." "Yeah. Well, then we've decided," Slava summed up. After that, I quickly grabbed the few things I was wearing and stomped after Leroy and Slava. Back then, neither I nor even my parents understood where I was going. But first things first. Honestly, I was afraid that I would be kept there in terrible conditions as a slave, but I was wrong. Lyra and Slava got a good 3 piece from their parents. Slava himself also earned a lot, and they didn't need my pennies. I needed something else, to become an assistant in the house for Lyra. I was immediately told that there would be no mistreatment of me. I was given a whole room, which I did not expect. However, there were limitations. I couldn't leave the house without Lyra's or Slava's permission and escort. And of course, Slava made it clear to me that if I molested his little sister, he would grind me to powder. What were my responsibilities? Yes, in fact, nothing complicated. Cooking, cleaning, washing, and just helping Lyra with some requests. We agreed that everything was within reason, so I stopped being afraid and relaxed my vigilance. Besides, I had new problems, because despite the simplicity of my tasks, I could not do anything. Yes, my mother did all these things all my life, so my maximum was to wash the dishes and clean up, but that wasn't enough. So Lyra taught me what to do and how to do it, and I kept it in mind. And even though it didn't work out the best at first, I gradually improved my skills, and Lyra was pleased with me. At first, we visited our parents periodically and saw each other, but soon we were mostly just talking on the phone. My ancestors took up their own lives because they used to have me, and now I've grown up and left, even if only for a while. Yes, then I thought I'd return to my native home as soon as Lyra's pregnancy ended, because that's what we agreed on, began to spend time at the cottage, and sometimes just left on vacation. Anyway, I wasn't small, and they thought I was in good hands, so they weren't too worried about me. My relationship with Slava began to improve, and sometimes we could even chat, but we still live in the same house. And Lyra, surprisingly, was not directly negative towards me. We had quite friendly relations, as before. I just helped her with household chores. The rest of the time I was free, and I did what I wanted, really at home. She didn't have many friends, so we talked a lot, like we used to at the beginning of our relationship. Periodically, I went to the store with Lyra, although most of the time Slava bought the necessary products himself. We walked in the park, because expectant mothers need fresh air and a proper lifestyle for the well-being of the child. In general, I got used to the conditions of my new life. Slava also brought some pills for me one day, saying they were vitamins. I started to refuse, to which he replied that I looked much worse. And indeed, I somehow became paler, the circles under my eyes increased, so I thanked Glory, and now I took several types of vitamins every day, not even suspecting what it really was. To be honest, it's my mistake that I was so trusting, and I didn't think it was right to ask what I was drinking at all. In addition, from time to time, I woke up for breakfast, which I had to cook, and although no one was mad at me, Lyra came up with a nickname for me, name that she began to call me more and more often, Sonia. Then Slava picked it up for her. At first, I tried to protest, but soon I just got used to responding to that name. And about a month later, in October, when I was 3 months pregnant, suddenly, my clothes, which were not very much, began to deteriorate due to constant cleaning and cooking. Once, when I was in Lyra's room and was cleaning it up, Lyra told me, "Sonia, God, How awful your clothes look. It's already impossible to walk in them easily. What should I do, Leroy? I don't have many clothes, but I can't buy new ones. And why? I'm doing my homework anyway. What do you mean, why? Lyra was suddenly surprised. To look beautiful. No one is asking you to wear a wedding suit. I just want you to look neat at my place, and not like a dirty one. And what do you suggest? Go shopping? I don't like it very much. Don't go anywhere, silly. I have an idea. Which one? Borrow Glory's clothes? So it will be too big for me. Why do we need Slavik's clothes? There's my old one. Lyra smiled mysteriously. Yours? Lair, but it's female. So what? No one sees you here anyway, and besides, Sonia, let it be my wish, and you promise to do everything. To be honest, I was afraid that Lyra would someday come up with something strange. In fact, putting on women's clothes in a house where two people see me is not such a shameful thing. She wasn't. Okay. I'll wear your things if they fit me. Of course, they will fit. You and I are about the same shape and height, so everything will fit. Despite what Lyra said, I hoped to the last that she was wrong and her things would be too small for me. She took out her t-shirt, skirt, tights, and panties. I was a little ashamed to change clothes in front of her, but she said there was nothing to hide. She had seen everything there. I took off all my clothes and quickly put on Lyra's panties so as not to show off my manhood. Next, with the help of Lyra, he pulled on tights and then put on a skirt and a tank top. To my horror, everything came up to me, and when I saw myself in the mirror, I was a little stunned. I looked quite feminine, although of course it was a little obvious that I was not a girl, but such a cute boy in women's clothes. Nevertheless, I was stunned that I did not look like a man at all. Even the overgrown hair complemented the image. Lyra, as if reading my thoughts, gave me a hairstyle in a feminine manner. Well, pretty girl, that's much better. Now you're going to wear my clothes all the time. Okay? Realizing that it was useless to argue, I nodded silently and went back to my business. And even though it was unusual at first, but after a couple of hours, these clothes were like my own. After lunch, Lyra was resting and I wanted to get back into my clothes, but I was afraid I might offend Lyra with this. So I continued to be in her clothes. The worst thing happened in the evening when Slava found me like this. I was red as a crab in front of him, and I tried to avoid him, even though it didn't really work out. After dinner, when Lyra was in her room and I was washing the dishes, Slava suddenly came up to me and spoke. Sonia, don't be shy about me. I know everything. There's nothing wrong with that. Lyra told me everything. I thought that now he knows everything and understands that this is Lyra's wish, and he seems to have calmed down. Thank you, Slav, but I thought you'd be thinking all sorts of things about me. No, it's okay. There's nothing to be ashamed of if you like wearing women's underwear. Many people love it, but I don't condemn it in any way. Moreover, you look cute in it, Slava smiled. His last words confused me, but damn, Lyra told him that I like to wear women's rags, so she gives it too. But I was more worried that Slava would now think that I was gay. I didn't dare to argue. It didn't make sense, because who would Slava believe? To her beloved sister, or to me, their housekeeper, who abandoned her? So I had to put up with it. Over the weekend, all my old things disappeared completely, even though I wasn't allowed to wear them. But why take them away? I tried to find out, to which Lyra replied that they had been thrown out, since it was already trash, and I shouldn't wear it at her house. And I accepted it. Well, at least outside, she gave me as many different things as possible, so everything wasn't so terrible. I can't even imagine going out in a skirt or a dress. In general, I adapted to the new conditions again, and gradually it also became a common thing. Almost every day, I wore something new from Lyra's wardrobe, as it was large. In fact, Lyra's old things just became mine. Periodically, I even began to choose my own clothes. The only thing I didn't allow Lyra was to force me to go out in openly feminine clothes, but in my heart I knew that such a day would soon approach. In addition, I began to notice that I was becoming more and more feminine every day. Maybe if you try to see the difference between yesterday and today, you won't see anything, but when I compared my photo from the summer, I was stunned. My hips also got wider, and already Lurka's jeans and trousers began to look beautiful on them. Sometimes I even looked at myself, but it was clear that this was not the norm of what was happening to me. Another problem was that my breasts began to ache a little and increase in size. She hadn't grown big yet, and it wasn't particularly noticeable under the t-shirt. So for a while, I tried to hide this fact from Lyra, but it didn't work out. Once, when I was changing clothes in front of her, and she noticed my swellings. Oh, Sonechka's breast has already started to swell, right? I don't know. I didn't want to confirm this fact. Let me see. Leroy, is it normal that my breasts are growing? You probably just gained weight, so she grew up. And for some reason, Lyra's answer seemed quite logical to me, but I hardly go out. I eat a little more than before, so I gained weight. In general, Lyra wasn't lying, but I decided the reason for weight gain for myself, and I wasn't embarrassed that fat appeared in typically feminine places. Yeah. Hey, Lair. What, sleepyhead? Do you know why my chest hurts? For some reason, I was very ashamed to ask that. You probably rub them with your clothes. Do you know what to do? I asked hopefully. I know, but you won't like it, Lyra said with a smile. What's not to like? Well, in order not to rub your breasts, you need a bra. What? Yes, that's how it is, Sonechka. I thought about it for a while and realized what I had to lose, especially since I didn't want to suffer pain. Okay, give me your bras. From where? From where? You wear them yourself. I do, but mine won't fit you. They're too big. And it's true, Lyra had breasts of almost 3 sizes, but I don't even have a single one there. And what should I do? Well, Lyra thought about it. In principle, we can go to the store and buy you bodices of the right size. God, as soon as I imagined that I was trying on bras in a store where there were people, I was terribly scared. But there didn't seem to be any other option. So you have to overcome your fear and go for bras. I gave my consent, and Leroy and I started packing. I dressed as usual, jeans and a blouse. And then I realized that I didn't want anyone to recognize me as a guy, so I asked Lyra to disguise me with makeup. Accordingly, I had to shave, although I have never had lush facial hair, and even more so now. And Lyra was happy to do my makeup and hairstyle. She covered up the circles under my eyes, made up my eyelashes, drew arrows, and made up my lips. And then I took a curling iron and curled my hair a little, which was already covering my ears. When I looked at myself after the transformation, I was shocked. To be honest, I was admiring myself. Now no one could mistake me for a guy. However, Lyra wanted to compliment my look and asked me to wear a skirt instead of jeans. In the beginning, I argued. But then when Lyra gave me an ultimatum that either I was going in a skirt or we weren't going anywhere, I quickly agreed. However, nothing terrible happened. Lyra and I walked calmly down the street, and passers-by probably perceived us as 2 girlfriends. Everything was going well in the store, too. Lyra chose me a few bras, after which I tried them on. We chose the ones that fit best, and were about to go to the checkout when suddenly Lyra noticed the dress and wanted to try it on. Now I had to wait, but as it turned out, the dress didn't fit her because of her pregnant belly. She was upset, but not for long, because she offered to try it on for me. I started to refuse, but she looked at me so much that I fell silent and went to try it on. I put on a dress and went out to show myself to Lyra in it. This dress suits you very well, Sonia. I'm even a little jealous. Huh. You think? I was looking at my reflection questioningly. Of course. It perfectly accentuates your figure. Lyra examined me again. That's it. I've decided. We'll take it. And finally, we paid for our purchases and went home. It was almost evening, so I started cooking dinner, and when it was ready, Lyra told me to go wash up, but not to wash off my makeup and hairstyle. In the meantime, she picked up a set of underwear for me from the new clothes. Also, Lyra asked me to wear a new dress. We were having dinner when Slava came home and went into the kitchen. He looked at me intently and said, smiling, "Hello, beauties." I was embarrassed and looked away at my plate. And while Slava was changing into his homemade clothes and washing his hands, I was serving him dinner. I hadn't finished yet when Slava came in and gasped, "Oh, Sonia, you look absolutely irresistible today." "Thank you," I replied awkwardly and put a plate of food to Slava. "Yes," Lyra said, "Sonechka is just beautiful today. We went to the store and bought her some new clothes, including this dress." Slava began to examine the dress. And at that moment, I didn't understand why Lyra called me in the feminine gender, though. Considering my appearance, there's no other way to say it. Sonia, why are you standing there like that? Show me the dress properly. And I started posing in a dress for Lyra and Slava, and they just admired my beauty. When they finally calmed down and left me alone, I was able to eat properly. And Slava, picking up from Lyra, addressed me in the feminine gender too, thanking me for a delicious dinner. I thought it was a one-time thing, but no. Now Lyra constantly addressed me in the feminine gender and Slava in different ways. I didn't even try to convince them anymore, but I was talking about myself in the masculine gender, although they didn't seem to notice it. In addition, after the very first trip to the store, we began to go there often, as Lyra liked to dress me in more and more new outfits, and also the growth of my breasts did not stop. At some point, I was already worried, because my breasts were size 1, and this can hardly be attributed to weight gain. But even here, Lyra had an explanation. It turns out that guys sometimes have a false pregnancy syndrome, and therefore a lot of female hormones are injected into their blood, and as soon as a child is born, everything returns to normal. It sounds kind of implausible, doesn't it? I know, but I was a fool to believe it, because I had heard or read fragments of something like that, and I thought that probably, since I am the father of children, that's why it showed up in me. And he was calm about his metamorphoses. Also, already in the 6th month of pregnancy, Lyra asked me to move into her room, as she wanted to be closer to her friend. Yes, I just couldn't be a boyfriend or a friend in her eyes anymore. I wasn't even in my own. It was as if I was like a younger sister to her, and she liked to teach me various feminine wisdom. At first, I wasn't very interested, but soon I got involved, and I didn't really have a choice. And Slava treated me more and more like a girl. He started complimenting me, giving me small gifts, and even hugging me, but obviously not as a guy. I won't hide it, but I liked it, even though I knew it was wrong. Perhaps, at that moment, I began to have some feelings for fame.